This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
A misty, mysterious morning out here on Djuma Game Reserve. Look at this. Isn't that just beautiful? Well, we're hoping that all our sightings this morning will be enrobed by this gorgeous mist. And what can you imagine in the mist? For me, I'm thinking hyenas in the mist would be gorgeous. I'm sure Steve is thinking a leopard in the mist will be gorgeous. And what do you think? Well, it's your live safari, everybody, so jump on board for it through the African bush. Welcome and good morning to today's less than sunrise safari. We're waiting for the sun to rise, but it is so dense, so muggy, so much humidity today. But the bush looks particularly vibrant because everything's a little bit moist. How gorgeous is that? Hi everyone, it's me, TRISHALA. I have Johan on camera with me, and we are on a small mission, a short mission today, just to the hyena den, which is not far from me. In fact, I think that we can get moving in a bit. But I want to spend some time with them because I've been trying for the last couple of days, but just kept getting distracted by tracks and animals, and them obviously not being around. So we're going to spend some time there and see what comes of it. For now, we're just looking out to the gorgeous misty vistas of Djuma. So like I said, your live safari, so to chat to us, give us your questions and your comments using that hashtag WildEarth. You can also use @FC on the YouTube chat stream. You can even go to our website and you can register there and use our questions and comments box. Also, if you're under 18, you can use kids' questions at wildearth.tv. And we would love to hear from you.
Mark.
We have a few birds that are just chilling in the mist there too. Oh, there's a black-headed oriole. Just in on this dead tree closest to us. It's calling, it's going whoop, whoop. Doesn't it look so jungly? Oh, and it's flown away. Oh, well. Let us send you over to have a look at what the weather is like instead. Hopefully we'll find another oriole a little later.
Good morning from andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve, and the view that you've got there is looking to the east, out over False Bay of Lake St. Lucia, the sand dunes of the Indian Ocean in the distance there, and beautiful rays of light coming through the clouds. My name is Damon. Behind the camera this morning is Craig. We've come out after another stormy night here at andBeyond Phinda. We had a big cloud burst last night, lots of heavy rain. So once again, the grass is sopping wet, the roads are super slippery, all the little pans are full of water, there's insects chirping and birds calling, and there's that magnificent scene of the clouds rolling over the Indian Ocean there off in the distance. It's a lovely scene, the lush green vegetation, and then that almost like salmon-y coloured sky out to the east. And Craig and I are making our way slowly to the west, where a few moments ago one of the other game drive vehicles found a pride of lions. And so we're going to be making our way in that direction a bit later to see if we can't try and get a view of them. We saw tracks of one of the dominant males heading in that direction as well, so it'll be interesting to see if he's there with them. But what a magnificent scene. So as I was saying, that little lake that you can see there is just a small part of the immense Lake St. Lucia, a big estuary that borders us to our east. And that little part of Lake St. Lucia is called False Bay. I don't know if you can see at the bottom of it, there's almost like a little wetland. And that is where the Umzinen and Munyawana rivers form a confluence and then flow out of our reserve and into Lake St. Lucia. And normally there isn't such a marsh over there. It's a testament to all the lovely rain that we've had. And for those of you who live in South Africa, who've maybe visited Lake St. Lucia before, you'll know that the mouth of Lake St. Lucia has recently opened. Critter Freak, you're saying, what a magnificent view. Critter Freak, that's absolutely why we stopped here. And I wish we could have showed you a little bit earlier this morning. The clouds and the sky were the most incredible array of colors, purples and almost yellows and blues. It was gorgeous. But yeah, so with the estuary mouth being open, there's been an influx of salt water, and so we've had all kinds of estuarine fish coming up into the system. And there's a photograph that's been going around because Lake St. Lucia, because of the size of the body of water and its position, it holds quite a lot of a large population of crocodiles. And there was also, of course, because it's an estuary system, many different kinds of marine fish that rely on estuaries to breed come up into the estuary, even fish like bull sharks. And so it is not uncommon for there to be young bull sharks moving around in the estuary, hunting, looking for food. And there was a photograph that came out when the mouth opened up again of a massive Nile crocodile eating a baby bull shark. So that was obviously not too good for the shark, but quite an impressive photograph to see. Not exactly the kind of place, I suppose, where you'd want to go swimming there for. Lots of sharks, lots of crocodiles, and a very healthy population of hippos there too. And those crocodiles will come in from Lake St. Lucia, even onto andBeyond Phinda, up the river. But from our beautiful view here at andBeyond Phinda, we're going to head across to a beautiful view at Tswalu. And Craig and I are going to head in the direction of those lions, see if we can't get a view of them for you.
Huh? Yeah, didn't understand a word he said.
I think he's linking with.
Good morning. Welcome to a misty dawn here on Djuma with an eerie scene of some vultures in the tree. We do apologize about any technical issues experienced before. Hello everybody, it feels quite strange this morning. The mist is just moving past us. My name is Steve. I'm joined by our camera and we're excited to have you with us. Let's go back over to the vultures. Now, on the other side of that drainage line is where Darkmane stole that little impala baby yesterday from the birds, and they haven't been able to fly. Quite a nice way to start the day. They're looking at the clouds going, goodness, I don't think I'm going to get takeoff permission from the from the control center until the heat starts to build up. And as soon as the mist disappears, that is the only time they'll be able to take off. It's very energy expending for vultures to fly. A very heavy bird. They rely on thermals and air currents. They will and can fly though, but they often do not. Why waste energy? As it stands, scavengers generally have the lowest energy, the top-down sort of trophic cascade from the pyramid. The sun has got all the energy. The plants harness that energy, called the primary producers. And then the primary consumers, the herbivores, feed on that animal, not on that, on that grass or plant material, and they get a percentage of that energy. And the predators feed on those. And then last down the chain, the scavengers feed on the final product. So they only get a very small percentage of the original sort of investment of energy from the sun. So they will save energy as much as possible. That's why you see predators being so inactive as well. But Paul got a reality check yesterday of how quick a three-legged lion can be in the form of dark mane. If you missed yesterday afternoon's opening, he was woken to vultures landing, and he went at top speed, 0 to 100, chased the birds off to find an impala. We weren't able to find out what had happened to that impala because he was just wolfing it down too quickly, and it was in too thick a bush to see. But I feel on this Sunday morning, this beautiful, eerie sort of scene and some wonderful noises, that I'm just going to allow you to just soak it all in for a moment. To move on, it seems like we have acquired some traffic in the early morning. Let's go. Okay, we're going to carry on. We're just going to take it really easy this morning. And while we do so, we're going to send you back over to Tswalu Kalahari. Well, good morning and welcome to a clear-skied and very pretty sunrise here at Tswalu Kalahari. We're on the eastern section of the reserve this morning, having a look at the sun coming up over the mountains there in that little cloud bank, and it is quite a pretty picture. Got a little bit of a tablecloth going on there on one side. The sun rays just coming through. My name's Josh, and I'm going to be your guide this morning, and behind the camera is BK. Our plan is to have a little bumble around here and see what we can find. We're hoping, most likely, the king of the beasts.
So stick with us and let's see what we can see. So we were lucky enough to have a little bit more rain last night, and the skies have cleared up quite nicely over the central part of the reserve. But still quite a bit of cloud around the mountains itself. So nice pretty color going on. We're going to check one or two of our water holes and see if we can't find any sign for lions this morning. Who knows what we might find in between. So while we have a little look around and see what we can find, we're going to be sending you across to Trish at Djuma.
We are very lucky. Corky is here, her little girl, and I see Heart's little girl too. And they were actually in the middle of the road, the Hyena Den Road, the access, the through road. And now they've led us back to the original den, the den, well, I can't say the original den, but the den that we're used to seeing. So let's see who's at this den. Because I didn't go past the den that we have been currently seeing them at, because I came past Treehouse Dam. So let's see who's here. And then we can spend some time with them, then we'll go to the other den and see who's there. It's just really nice to see Corky, because I haven't seen her in a while. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Tumble. What are you rubbing yourself in? Predators will often rub themselves in the dung of other animals to mask their smell. But with hyenas, you more often see that they do it not in other animals' dung, but rather in their own clan's urine sometimes, or where they've been sitting so they can all get that scent. Okay, well, let's get a nice seat. It's so good to see them. Jackson, that is an excellent question. I'd like to know how many times have the hyenas moved dens and why? It's been many times, so I'm just going to park off, Jackson, and then we'll chat about it. Oh no, Corky's walked off. Oh, Corky. Okay, well then we'll drive and talk, Jackson, because as you know, we're not going to stay. There's Corky there. Let's just have a quick look at Corky, because I know you haven't seen her in a while. So they've moved dens very often. This group of cubs, it was Ribbon's boys first, and Tima's littlest one last. So in the space of that time, in the space of a year, and just under maybe, actually yes, just under, they've moved dens once, twice, 3 times a lady. No, sorry, it just went that way, guys. It just went that way. They've moved dens 3 times, and then now back and forth. between this den that I'm going to show you now that you'll recognize and the other den that we've been seeing them at often. So a couple things in Jackson, you also asked why. They will move dens when the den space is too small, but we know that this den space wasn't too small because almost all of the cubs were there at the same time, except for Ntima's one. Oh, even Ntima's one was here, actually. So all 7 cubs had been at this den. So once the den starts to smell like hyena and can attract predators, that's the best time to move the cubs. And there was a point where we didn't see them for a little bit, and that's when Ribbon moved her cubs to the Gallagher Shortcut den. Possibly somebody had been using the Mvubu Road den. I suspect Hart had been, because when we saw Hart's cubs, they were already pretty big. All right, Corky's gone. These two are coming back. Oh, no, she's still there. Okay, great. This mist invisibility is not great. And then after that, they kind of regrouped back at this den. So they must have thought that it's safe enough. So the reason that they would change den is if there's inadequate space or if there's the smell of hyena has become too pungent. They'll also change den if a cub has died in the den. And then obviously that would, the smell wouldn't be great. But let's go off to the other den. So without the suspicion of Mvubu Road den, it's 3 times. With the Mvubu Road den, because there was activity at that den, you could see there was digging and hyena tracks, it'd be 4 times. But at this age, Ribbon's boys are now older, even Hart's too, are starting to explore quite a bit. And at this age, I find, especially if they're much younger cubs, and then there are older cubs, they move around within the vicinity. If they have 2 dens like they did here, there was one there, there's a second one there, and that other one that we were going to go to now. You'll find that at this stage, they kind of move between them. Sometimes you find them here, sometimes you find them there, especially the cubs. They'll move along here in this area quite a bit. Now for last 2 years ago, cohort of cubs, they changed dens quite often. It was first Aubrey's Road den, then Aubrey's Road, then it was here, then it was Shibamu Road, then it was here, and then it was Gwen's old den, the one on Cheetah Cut Line. So there had been a lot of movement for the last set of cubs. Mandy, you say the misty scenery is beautiful. It really is. It's a little mysterious, a little spooky. It kind of makes me feel like what could come out in the mist? What could suddenly emerge as you get closer? Okay, now we are at the den closest to Philemon's cut line. So this is aptly named Den 1, Den 2, and Den 3. Because within this area they used all of them so often. Seems like nobody is home. There's the den entrance. But nobody is home. So I'm going to go off to Treehouse Dam. Maybe that's where Corky and Hart's little one and Corky's little one came out. And we won't know until we have a look. So that's where I'm going to go next.
Hi, my name is Damon and I'm a guide here at andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. Join me and our resident ecologist, Craig Sholto-Douglas, at the fireside on the 21st of March for a discussion on 2 of our conservation projects. In early 2016, andBeyond was faced with the fact that without some serious intervention, our rhino population could be in some serious trouble. And so a decision was made to start a rhino dehorning program. Sadly, the fastest mammal on land, the cheetah, is also racing towards extinction. The andBeyond Phinda conservation team has been working on a project that aims to increase the genetic integrity of cheetah in protected areas around the country. Sign up to be a WildEarth explorer and join us for a lively debate where we'll answer as many of your questions as possible.
For all of you WildEarth explorers who bought plaques, today is the day that you will make your very first safari on our vehicle. Because we are quite remote here in the bush, they have taken some time to arrive, but I am happy to say they are here and they look great. Marcel has spent the day attaching them. Let's take a look.
Before we mount these nameplates, we just give a light dusting of green paint. This is to better match them to the color of the vehicles and also to decrease the reflectivity of the metal and thereby staying sensitive towards the animals.
Bumbo crew, hopefully, Dan Black, Liesel Apgar and Alicia George. Well, it's time for me to get ready to take you all on a safari. Let's go.
I'm NIKKI here at andBeyond Ngala in South Africa. I love getting questions from viewers about all the small things within the environment and how it all is integrated with one another. If you want to ask me any questions, please simply register with the WildEarth website, head across to the Live Safari page and then post your questions there. I'm looking forward to chatting to you on my next WildEarth drive.
Good morning and welcome to everyone to andBeyond Ngala, which is a little bit misty this morning, and I've come across this hyena that looks quite lazy out in the open in the road. What a stunning area this is. I'm Yapi. Behind the camera we've got Gert. And we've set out this morning trying to see if we can pick up on any signs of leopard. But it's been tricky. There's been a lot of dew during the night, even a bit of rain. And we haven't had any luck yet. This hyena, judging from the red mane on the back, and then you can see the ears, the tips are almost chewed off, or it looks like it's chewed off. It looks quite bulky. It looks like a really, really large hyena, and in that case I'm going to go as far as to saying that it might be a female. But she is currently just relaxing. You can see the ears are up. And she's also using this time to listen out while waiting for the sun to warm the area up. And I think one of the best things about this morning is all the sounds. Everything's really, really active. And an open space is the best place to stop and just have a quick listen. So I think if we listen maybe for a minute or so just to hear all the sounds. that's spectacular, these morning sounds in this area. It's one of the best things about the open spaces like this. You can see the hyenas picked up her head, and it looks like there was something that piqued her interest coming from behind her, maybe the scent of something. I have seen some general game in this area, but I don't see them at the moment. It's an impala, wildebeest. I don't think this animal's planning on going anywhere anytime soon. I think it might rest for a little while. It's probably had a very long night. Lisa, are hyenas common in Ngala? Yes, they are. They're actually quite common. We do see very large clans, especially around this area. Now, my thinking is the size of this hyena, and I know that there have been some den sites in this area. Now, it is possible that this hyena has actually got a den site somewhere nearby, and because of the open space decided to come and lay down here. But we do have some clans that number more than 30. And I think a big hyena like this would probably be one of the senior members of a clan like that. And you can see, there we go, the head's picked up again and the muzzle held high into the wind. You'll notice the ears flicking every now and again. Now that's because of flies, flying insects around it. You can imagine an animal like this trying to feed off carcasses and looking for any scraps of food that might be available. It must acquire quite an interesting odor. The sense of smell of this hyena is incredible. So she will be able to pick up on any chemical sign traveling with the wind from far away. But the question is, would it be a good enough opportunity to make her move? Might be. Oof, look at that. You can see that belly looks full, but if you ask me, I think she might be pregnant. What an odd gait. That was quite a determined move, and I wonder where she's heading. You can see she's looking over in that direction. In the direction that she's looking, there used to be a den site there. But just like she's walking now, she probably spent the night, most of the night doing that, looking for opportunities to get some food. And at a steady pace like that, an animal like this can cover a lot of ground. Easily more than 30 to 40 kilometers. She doesn't look like she looks like she knows where she's going. It doesn't look like she's following a scent trail or anything. You can see the nose isn't down on the ground. And I think what we should do is maybe let's move a little bit closer and see if we can get another view of her. So while we try and get another view of the hyena, we'll head over to Steve. to Vuyatela Dam.
Sally.
Sorry about the game drive radio once again. Humblest of apologies on this blessedly eerie morning when the hippo is doing its thing, as they always do, bobbing. Now, we always like to spend time here at watering holes, as we saw evident with Trish at Chitwa the other day. She just sat there, and Kuchava's son just arrived. I think even last time I was here with him, Paul, we were talking about the process of sitting at watering hole and waiting, and an elephant just walked in. As the season started to pass on and we start to get more dry, happy autumn equinox, by the way, everybody. Well, officially autumn, it doesn't look anything like autumn. Still so much water. But it is indeed the changing of the seasons, and as the seasons change further into dryness, into the winter, we are separated by the two wet and dry seasons. Although we do go through cycles of wetter and drier years. We're going through a process right now for a wetter cycle. As the seasons wear on, the water does start to dissipate, and the larger water bodies, such as this one, will maintain their water longer into the season. And sitting at these watering holes will be an absolute pleasure. It is now already, but if you ever find yourself going to the Kruger as a self-drive tourist in the winter months, just parking off at a watering hole for a few hours with some coffee and your binoculars and some snacks can be extremely rewarding. It's not always easy to find animals. You either bump them on the road. If you're a self-drive tourist, you obviously can't get out and track them, but water is the essence of all these animals' existence, and they need to visit here. It's always a good spot for birding. Generally a good place to find hippos and elephants. If you're in Prrivate, they like to swim every day. But you never know what you might find. And it's generally also quite peaceful and tranquil to just sit at a watering hole. Different watering holes will have different degrees of aquatic vegetation lining the edge, different vegetation structures along the banks, and so you generally have different aquatic aquatic-like birds, depending on the presence of fish or not. You'll have quite a varying degree of water birds. And in the winter months, you will get plenty of seed-eating birds coming down to the water's edge to drink. And a pair of binoculars, if you ever do find yourself on safari, is an essential part. Unless you've got incredible binocular vision like that of an eagle, I suggest buying yourself a decent pair of roof prism binoculars. Roof prism basically means straight from front to back. They are straight, they don't bulge out, and generally a 1:5 ratio. So mine's a 10x42, so that's okay. If you start getting a 1:20 or 15, it starts getting very heavy. At date, it is very tranquil, very peaceful, isn't it? Some hornbills calling. Lovely serenity here in the early dawn. And see some nice reflections of the trees on the water. Grey-headed bushwhack calling, the spookvoël. Black-crowned chagra. crested barbet churring in the background. Kelly, at the moment there's only one. But bearing in mind last year this watering hole maintained a fair amount of water, but the previous years it actually dried up completely. So it's kind of like one of those unreliable territories for the hippos. He's saying he's on his own, but he's attracting the ladies. He's got a really nice spot this year. That was his, come on ladies, where you at? Last time I was here in January, there were 3 hippos in here. So watering holes have the potential to always have new arrivals. Hippos do range quite far, looking for food, and they might just decide, ooh, here we go, here's a watering hole I haven't visited before, and spend the day in it, and then maybe decide that they're quite happy there or move on again. So it's all about the dominant male, it's all about the availability of food, and it's also sort of a reliability. So Chitwa, for example, and some of the very more major rivers that are constantly flowing have a reliability to them that have had water for a long time. An area that loses water, sort of from an investment point of view, it's tricky to sustain. So it would have to be established, and the females would have to learn that this is a viable area to hang out in. And he's got to basically claim it, which he has done. That's why he's come forward towards us to say, hey, you guys, this is mine. There's a bit of flux at the moment with an abundance of water. The hippos are all over the place. But as the season starts to dry up, as I said before, and the longevity of those watering holes starts to show themselves, that's when the territorial competition for those resources becomes very, very prominent. And we talk about habitat. We often talk about the niche, where an animal lives in the environment. The fundamental niche is the entire element of the environment that an animal can live in without competition, and the realized niche is the area that an animal lives in with competition. So hippos have a very large environmental niche, but if there's no water, they cannot occur there. They have to occur in an area where there is sustainable perennial water. And so they will have to move in dry times, and their numbers are actually quite heavily affected in droughts. I think the hippo populations are still recovering from the last drought. Availability of space leads to tense conflict between big bulls, and those can lead to some serious injury and even death. Okay, well, we're going to probably move on to another beautiful place, and we'll send you over to andBeyond Phinda with Damon.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda. Craig and I managed to get a brief glimpse of that pride of lions as they were feeding on a carcass. We couldn't quite see what it was, but they were feeding pretty busily, and unfortunately in a very dense thicket where there just wasn't a view. So we've left the area, and just as we were driving away, there was a splash of white on the mountainside that caught my attention. And it is very far away, but look there in the middle of your screen. Can you see that white kind of rectangle or diamond shape perched up on a dead tree there? It's the chest of a juvenile martial eagle. And look how it's perched up there on that stick, like I said, scanning the plains below. It's quite high up the mountainside, so from up there, must have an absolutely fantastic view of the plains beneath it from which to scan for prey. It's the very same mountainside that I last saw this pride of lions up on. They were lying up on some rocks, also looking down onto the plain below. And perhaps that's how they spotted their unfortunate victim that they must have caught in the early hours of this morning. There we go with Craig zooming out just to give you an idea. Sure, that little white dot getting swallowed, or rather disappearing. So there, the rock on the top right, the highest point, that's where I last saw this pride of lions. So they've obviously come down from the rocks in the night to hunt. But even from this distance, look at how that white dot still sticks out quite a bit in the sea of green that is that mountainside. And very often out in the bush, if we're looking for especially big cats, leopards or lions or cheetah, because they've got, all of them have got white chests and white bellies. Of course, the tip of a leopard's tail, that little white tail tip. Always, or very often worth very often worth
Sorry about that, everybody. You're back with us. We just moved on from our watering hole. Very slow Sunday. I've already done 30 burpees this morning, and I'm not going to lie, my body is feeling it today. 700 up till yesterday. I'm going to do 150 today. I thought I might be able to push it to 200, but I think that's being a little bit overconfident. I thought maybe for the last 4 days of the burpee challenge doing 200 would take me up to 1,500, but let's see how we go. It might just be the stiffness of the morning. It's been a long week. Day 7 of the burpee challenge, Burpees for Conservation. And after a week of doing something, you do start getting quite tired. But we're going to carry on and go find you another beautiful scene. And in the meantime, we're going to send you back over to my good friend, TRISHALA.
I love just spending some time and waiting for the little birds. They just saw 2 blue wax balls jump out of shot. And here there's a female green-winged petilia. I'm waiting for the male to come along because they are just gorgeous. Can you hear that? Orange-breasted bushrack. There's a lot of birds around here. She's just jumped down. You can see the faint kind of greeny, and then that red tail and a blush kind of beak, but the male is, the color is a lot more prominent. Male green-winged petilia is one of my favorite little birds. That's why I want to be really patient and see if he comes along. If we move up a little bit and left, a whole lot of them are, around. A little more. There's quite a few of them, so if we pull out, we might see them a little bit better. There's a blue axball. A little bit more. There's quite a few of them in that area. There we go. Towards the top there, there's about 3 or 4 of them. Look at that. There's that orange-breasted bushrack. Look at that color. Oh, patience pays off with these small things. There's also a firefinch somewhere around that I've been seeing. I couldn't see if it was a Jamison's or a red bolt. But these smaller birds tend to hang out together. the waxbill, the firefinch, and the petilias. Birding is like a treasure chest, you know, like what can you find, what can you tick off? It's so rewarding when you do see something like orange-breasted bushrack. We hardly get to see them, but we hear them so often. Everyone's going about their morning business. A bit of cleaning, preening. And soon it'll be time for a snack. Can you hear the faint cheep, 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 cheep? That's the blue waxbills. I'm just scouring the tree for more birds. Seems like most of them have flown off now. Isn't it all just so gorgeous? We often see them on the ground in front of us as well. Look at them coming and going, coming and going. That orange-breasted bushrack is still in there somewhere. Oh, that was the prize for me. That really was the prize. I'm seeing so many birds all over the place. It's like a treasure chest. Oh, that bushrack is back. That grey-headed bushrack has a much thicker bill. And it makes a very different call. It goes boop, boop, and this one goes tit, 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 tit. Of course, I can't whistle, which is why I gave you those descriptions. Anyway, I'm going to sit here for a little longer and just enjoy this and hopefully find some more little treasures.
On the 27th of April, WildEarth will be turning 14 years old, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you. And to celebrate, we will be finishing the beautiful book that we started last year that looks at the history so far. But we do need you to be part of it. Please submit your most memorable sighting, or what WildEarth means to you, or even just your name and a comment to be included inside the book. Head over to the website to add your name and reserve your copy. We are offering a 20% discount on all books bought before the end of March. And a big thank you to all of you who have contributed to the book so far.
With a slew of potential dangers lurking, it's essential to be aware of your surroundings whilst walking in the wilderness.
20 yards yards away from one of the most endangered species. This is a big bull.
What a moment, what a close encounter with an Ellie bull. He's just over here now. He's moved completely away.
Being on a bushwalk and seeing a leopard, I mean, it's ridiculous to be this close to a leopard on foot and for him not to run is absolutely insane. How crazy was that? Through the gap there is just the back of the head of a male lion. He is absolutely unaware that we are here right now. I tell you, seeing lions on foot, it definitely brings out the caveman in you, this little scared human being.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on WildEarth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
Well, folks, it's been a little quiet on the lion front here at Tswalu. There's no tracks, no sign, and no audio. But we were lucky enough to come across this black-winged stilt here at one of our dams close to the mountains. And it's quite an unusual bird. So it has the longest legs in comparison to body size of any bird species. So these guys are waders. Will feed on little insects, small fish, and anything else he can find here in the little estuaries and dams and that. So tadpoles are obviously quite a big thing for him. Looks like we're getting a little bit of cleaning going on there, just preening those feathers, keeping them neat and tidy. Nice pose and a lovely reflection in the water there. We've also got some shell ducks making a racket as they fly overhead. Maybe they'll come in and land. Oh, what's this guy found here? Something made him jump there. And there go our shell ducks. Nice and peaceful here at the water. And this gentleman still carrying on, having a look what he can find. So, something caught his attention. Maybe just a bird or breakfast. So they'll generally inhabit shallow inland water bodies, estuaries, lagoons, and in areas where there's been quite a lot of rain in a very short period of time. They generally will appear within like 2 or 3 days. It's believed that they almost follow the storm fronts. Quite an intelligent bird, that's for sure. A very long beak there. So, Anahita, they are almost identical. The males, when non-breeding, are slightly duskier on the crown and nape. Juveniles are very similar, but taking a look at this individual, I'm going to go with he's a male. His plumage is quite dark at the moment, very clear, so I'm going to go with a male on this one, Anahita. He's having a feast there. It looks like he's after the water skeeters, if I'm not wrong. It's a little difficult to see something so small. What he's seeing. Do wonder where his partner might be. They're generally a monogamous breeder with their nests very close to the water and often surrounded by very shallow water. As you can see, he gets quite deep there as he's feeding. we've had unseasonably good rains this year and in this rainy season, so I think a lot of our plants, frogs and everything will be having a field day at the moment. So, just been asked by LaRue, do they have a breeding season? So, I'm just going to double check myself here. But generally, you'll find that they will breed almost year-round. I think as long as there is enough food, you'll find that they'll breed most of the year. Oh, we found a tadpole there. So I have just double-checked myself. They do breed year-round, but egg laying tends to peak during August and October. Anna Maria, I'm glad we could add a new one to your list. Always nice to see a new bird species. So Tswalu's got just over about 240 birds on its recorded list, although occasionally we do land up with species that haven't been seen here that might be blown in by storm fronts, or, as I like to say, occasionally their GPSs get a little bit whacked. Just seen a shaft-tailed wider pop down to the water here. I'm just trying to see where he's gone. I might get lucky and add another one to the list. He's gone into that thick sedge there. Oh, there he is. Oh, no. Our male shaft-tailed widers have an incredibly beautiful tail, but are very energetic birds. If you swing to the left here, fortunately, I think this might be a little bit into the sun. You see him on the branch there. This little bush close to us. I think this might be a little bit into the sun. So we're going to just try and see if we can't get a look at a male down. Yeah, right here on the edge here. There he is. See this little bush next to us? BK, check this out. Yeah. So it's got quite a pretty long tail. And these guys at the moment are trying to get the ladies' attention. So, bouncing around. Oh, and he's gone again. So, very energetic little birds. At least our stilt is posing nicely for the camera. I'm most curious to see where this gentleman's lady might be. And there's lots of widers popping in and out of the area. Very cool. This dam's quite a popular birding site on Tswalu. Check on the top there. There's one BK. So, answer your question now, Raja. We're just getting a little bit of a better look here at one of our male shaft-tailed widers who's actually posing slightly. See that incredibly long tail you only have in the breeding season. Try and attract the lady's attention. So, we've just been asked by Raja, what would predate on our black-winged stilt? So, Roger, you'll find small things like jackal and that, especially if they're on the nest, are very opportunistic. And then your birds of prey. Primarily in this region, I'd say their big risk would probably be a pale chancing goshawk as one of our bigger birds of prey that might be able to get them. Although you do find some in the west where we have peregrine falcons that go out to the sandgrass and that might also take a unwary stilt as an optional meal. King, am I an avid birder? I must say, for many years as a guide, they drove me crazy. But definitely in the last, I'd say 18 months to 2 years, I started growing very fond of them. The birding on Tswalu can be quite difficult. So we have a lot of little LBJs, so little brown jobs, if you like, in the pipit and lark families, which can be very difficult to identify. So they only have very small details that are different. But I've definitely grown much fonder of birds and birding and pursued it a lot more intently, I would say, in the last 18 months to 2 years. Lovely reflection there on the water. A lot of work going into preening those feathers and keeping them clean. Obviously wading in and out of the water, there's always muck and that gathering on them. So you need to keep them nice and clean as often as possible. Looks like this gentleman's finished feeding for a little while. Just watching what's going on. No, he's back at it. A little hop and a skip there. I think from our side we're going to carry on bumbling down the road and seeing if we can't pick up maybe some fresh tracks for the king of the beasts, and who knows, maybe one or two other bird species for the road. Oh, little slender mongoose just snuck across the road there, going very quickly. No, he's not sticking around. So for our keen birding fans, we're going to be sending you across to Yapi, who has some other species for you.
And here we've come across the ultimate master of the bush. The Swinton spurfowl. The crimson fowl. And it's up on a nice perch. Some preening and cleaning going on, but it's mainly, I think, part of routine maintenance, but it's also because he wants to look good. spot that he's in at the moment. It's nice and high, it's elevated. And there's a lot of other birds that's been calling in this area all morning. And so, for instance, spurfowl often displays like quite late into the morning before it gets too hot. And I can hear a couple calling in this area, so the competition is high. And when there are birds like this on call, it is a huge noise that they make. I'm hoping this one will call. What I found interesting about this particular spurfowl for a ground-dwelling bird, it perches very high when it calls compared to, say, the tall spurfowl and crested franklin. These feathers are a little bit roughed up, so there's a lot of cleaning and preening to be done. You can see that quick jerk of the head to just have a look around every now and again. That's because these birds are highly territorial. And you often see that they take it out on any other bird that might be nearby. I've noticed out of the franklins or the spurfowls, it can be quite persuasive in that it usually pushes off other birds in the area. And while this spurfowl's continuing its morning routine, we'll head over to Trish, who's got another bird.
I did have a violet-backed starling, but you know how it is with birds? They know, they get the director's comms, you see, and they know exactly when to move away. So now I can just see a drongo, so why don't we move slowly forward? I haven't been able to move much at all because the birds this morning have been incredible. We just need to find that one tree that they're all interested in. We did there, further back on Pangolin Track. This is actually a great spot to just sit and wait and see if there's any other birds that'll pop out. And of course, if they do pop out, I will tell you. Hopefully you'll be able to get there in time. Or get to me in time before they fly off. I'm going to send you over to Yapi while I scan this area by binoculars, and hopefully I'll find some more gems.
So the spurfowl's been really busy sorting out these feathers.
But being up on a perch like this serves a multiple function. It's also quite high up. It's got a good view of the area. And often before they start preening and doing their routine, it's usually just a case of watching. I've got a really loud territorial call, and it would be good if we get to see that. But at this point, I don't know if he's actually going to be. I think he's just up high because he's probably using the sunlight. It's starting to warm up nicely now. And burn off some parasites while cleaning. There's a lot of other birds in the area also calling. Look, my favorite bird to see is probably this bird, to be honest. I think it is a bird with a lot of attitude. It does change quite a lot. I think it's difficult to say for one, or say one bird for sure. I do enjoy eagles as well, any of the large eagles. Tawny eagle especially. But what I like about these birds is they're always up to something and they're always quite busy. Often, especially the Swainson spurfowl chases the crested and the Natal spurfowl. There's always a bit of a situation going on. There are birds with attitude. And when it comes to that, I think this is probably the bird with attitude. I remember a while back when I actually realized how interesting they can be is I was looking at a pride of lions laying down, only a small pride, few lions, and there was a stump nearby, and one of these birds came out of nowhere climbing up the stump and eventually found the highest point of it, and it started calling, and it made such a noise that the lion stood up and actually moved. Bit of a scratch there. And I think what it's looking for there is it's probably getting some grass seeds and things that's been blown off in the road. I like the way they run as well. You can see, even though he's stopping to feed every now and again, I think he's a little bit lonely. He's probably lost the... Oh, wow. That's awesome. I've never seen them do that before. I wonder what it got there. I could have gone after some seeds or flowers, but I think at this moment what I've noticed, a lot of the tall grasses next to the road have small insects or even little spider webs on them. Maybe it saw something move and jumped up and grabbed that. Amazing how it moves quite quickly and then just stops every now and again to have a quick look. Found the shady patch there. That was quite an interesting few moments with this Swainson spur foal. I hope it finds some others in the area.
Hi, my name is Damon and I'm a guide here at andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. Join me and our resident ecologist Craig Sholto Douglas at the fireside on the 21st of March for a discussion on 2 of our conservation projects. In early 2016, andBeyond was faced with the fact that without some serious intervention, our rhino population could be in some serious trouble. And so a decision was made to start a rhino dehorning program. Sadly, the fastest mammal on land, the cheetah, is also racing towards extinction. The andBeyond Phinda conservation team has been working on a project that aims to increase the genetic integrity of cheetah in protected areas around the country. Sign up to be a Wild Earth explorer and join us for a lively debate where we'll answer as many of your questions as possible.
Wild Earth explorer Jenny recently joined Tristan as he broadcast live from Djuma.
Awesome to kind of have a guest on board. I'm looking forward to this. This is Jenny.
Hi everyone.
And Jenny is the first of our Ticket to Dream holders.
If you want to go on safari with a Wild Earth guide, whilst honing your bush knowledge and of course featuring in one of our shows, then head over to our website.
Literally being with Tristan on the vehicle today has been incredible. It has truly been a dream come true.
Sign up to be a Wild Earth explorer and you could be making your first ever on-screen appearance.
I would highly recommend being a part of the Explorer program and being able to be a part of an interactive live drive.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on WildEarth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
We're now at Treehouse Dam. I thought we could add some water birds to our list. Here we have a water thickney, squinting with the sun that's finally popped out beneath the curtains of the mist. It's finally out now. This water thickney is also warming up. Typical structure for a water bird. Tall, long legs to help it walk through the water, not wet its feathers, and also wade through, so it can find all those little prey items it likes, little crustaceans, other invertebrates that it may find in the water. It's looking very sleepy. It's looking actually in the direction of some dwarf mongoose that are also close by, right next to it. They're also enjoying the sun as it's finally emerged. There was a little scrub here that was also enjoying the sun. This is a great spot because it's right near some water, which means they might find some really great insects, other cool little things that they can eat for breakfast. Plus the sun is really beating down in this particular area, so they can get nice and warmed up. There's a lot of play happening as well. Look at that one, is flat on the ground too. That's the best way. You can sun the top of your body and the bottom of your body. Get nice and warm against the road that's been warming up with the sun also. Oh, all you guys think that dwarf mongoose are always fun. They certainly are always fun. I always find them quite fun. I think there's always something happening, like this fight that's now broken out quite violently. It's in the grass, though. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. That's just an innocent bystander. The two culprits. Where'd you go? I think that's one culprit. Guys, why are you camera shy? You've been doing this the whole time I've been sitting here. Now that the camera's on you, you want to stop. Oh, there it is. It's the youngsters. I love seeing them play fight in the morning because it makes me feel that they've really absorbed all this energy. Now we know that they particularly, in the mornings, their behavior is always to first sun themselves. And I almost feel a little bit, not sorry for them, but you know, that they've got to go through this and their little bodies are losing heat and they've got to gain this heat. And when I see them energetic and playing like this, especially youngsters, it makes me feel that, oh, they're ready for the day. It makes me happy to see them like this. Have you found a stick? You have found a stick. Johan has now asked it to please stick around. Thank you, Johan. I appreciate that. There's some more crazies going on. Fight, 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 fight. Hey, Jerome. You'd like to know if they ever gang up on bigger threats. If it's something that is a prey item that they can take, definitely. Like they can gang up on snakes. I mean, that's a big item, especially if it's a large snake. But you see it with things like scorpions, and if there's maybe two of them, two mongoose, you'll see them both go for a scorpion and can help each other. As for a threat, less so. For them, their biggest threats are large snakes, which they will often have an interaction with and it may come off badly. And the other thing is aerial predators. And when it comes to aerial predators, it's not really worth it to expend energy when trying to chase away an aerial predator when it's just futile. It's just going to come down, swoop, grab, and go. So to take prey, I have seen that happen, but not to protect themselves against predators. They're just owning this road. I love giving them the time to emerge. Alyssa, you say they're so adorable, you want one? Well, Alyssa, if you're in South Africa, you're probably going to see them in your backyard. Most South Africans do, especially in KZN. We have banded mongoose like you can't believe. Banded mongoose when I used to go to work, banded mongoose when I come home, banded mongoose in the morning, in the evening. All over the place. They're so common and so widespread. But Alyssa, if you're not in South Africa, yes, they are very, very adorable. And they can make you feel like you want one. But you should definitely not keep one. Although I know that you know that already. Remember, they're carnivores. You can habituate them. There are a few places, more low-key than the meerkat habituation, but you can habituate them. And when we say habituate, that doesn't mean that you get to interact with them. It just means that they no longer feel anything towards your presence. Nothing. You're just another part of the environment for them. So they don't react to you. And that's great because you can get some excellent shots of them, and you can also learn a lot more about their behavior because it's not adjusted based on the fact that you're there. Look at that face. Oh, this is great. There's so many of them now. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 of them. That's just the ones we can see. Oh, someone's having a bit of a dig. They've got a good set of claws on them. That allows them to dig very well. Much like the meerkats. If you've seen the meerkat's claws, they're very, very robust and much longer than you expect. Yeah, the woodland kingfisher. It looks like the cloud has now come and blocked the sun. So it's cooled down a little bit in this section now. I think they might take that as a cue to get moving. You're the only one left in the road now. And looking straight at us. There's still some in the grass where the fighting arena was. I'm just seeing flashes of them. Let's watch. I'm expecting to see something just tumbling out. Yep, just like that. You're gonna get left behind. Everyone else is gone now, even the one that we saw in the middle of the road that was left. He's gone too. I think that was an excellent mongoose sighting. I was very happy with that. We can now move on, hopefully find some more birds. That would be great, don't you think? Oh, and thank you, Water Thickney. You were also fabulous. Okay, I'm just gonna wait here because some birds that I like just flew in, but I'm gonna send you over to Josh at Tswalu, and I'll figure out how many of my favorites have just flown in.
Well, folks, you find us bumbling around the south-western corner of the Kaba, still in search of our friends, the lions, but just no cigar at the moment. We're just not winning with tracks, but we're gonna try something a little bit different now. We're gonna do something little different. I think everybody can agree that one of the things we're all doing at the moment is washing our hands a lot. So the plant you see next to me with this lovely flower is a wild sesame. Now, what you can do with it is take the leaves, you boil them up, you just crush them a little bit, you get a bit of a slippery substance in your hands. We're going to take a bowl of water here. We're just going to add a little bit of water to this concoction. Oh, the extra hands. I'm just going to put that lovely little bit of leaves, bit of water, and crush them a bit more. And you'll end up with a very slippery, almost sludge. And it's a substance called sappermin. And what I've done, effectively, is using one of two plants we can do it with on Tswalu, is wash my hands. So the Kalahari is famous for having had a large amount of bushmen in the area. We've got petroglyphs here on Tswalu. And I do wonder if this isn't one of the herbs that they would have used. Now, their knowledge of nature was so much more than what I think we know on a lot of ways. Our scientific knowledge in that, and we've advanced so far, but still we're discovering new ways we can use plants. So the fact that in this time of chaos and that in our world, that you can grab something as simple as a few leaves, add some water, and effectively clean and disinfect your hands is rather cool, I think. So what we're going to do is carry on bumbling and see what else we find. But now that I've got clean hands, it's just that much better. All right. There you can see a nice view of our wild sesame. Quite a lot of it here on the property. And instead of running around with a bottle of hand sanitizer all the time, every now and then, we just take out a little bit of our wild sesame and we're good to go. Obviously, it is recommended to still use hand sanitizer in between everything. Starting to warm up quite nicely here at Tswalu. BK will give us a little pan around. See the mountains to our right are looking almost like a little watercolor. It's just that haze coming from the heat. As it starts to get warmer now, we're going to see a lot of our mammals starting to move into the shade. Although not true desert, a semi-arid area is definitely still governed to a large part by desert behavior, so very active in the early mornings and then quite late in the afternoons into the early evening. And as you can see, we've had good rain, grass is nice and tall. One can imagine that with the coloration around us, it's very easy to drive past something like a lion lying down in this long grass. So grass is a little bit of a mix between your giant thereon So, Elizabeth, does the wild sesame have a fragrance? No, not that I've been able to pick up. It's very much a bland scent. Although if we see another one now as we go, I'll stop and double check myself. But the substance it secretes in that, and when I wash my hands, most definitely has no smell whatsoever. It's just a very thin, very oily, slippery substance. So a lot of this grass we're driving through here is your giant finger grass, it's your bushman silky grass, and obviously our giant thereon. Colors are starting to change now. It's getting a little bit chillier in the mornings. So we're going from that deep, deep green to a slightly lighter yellow. We're getting these lovely fields. So sunrise is quite a beautiful image when you get all the inflorescence. So big word for all the little seed tops and that on the top of the grass, lighting up with quite a beautiful golden color. So, Jeffrey, do I know a lot about medicinal plants? It's definitely a huge interest of mine. I think to say I know a lot might be an exaggeration, but I definitely know quite a few in different areas. I've been lucky enough to guide in different areas and have learned a lot about them. The traditional uses of different plants and the medicinal uses is something that I've always found very interesting. So similar to how some of our guides have a passion for birds, like Kyle, I share mine more with one of our previous guides, Deirdre, who loves wildflowers and the more medicinal stuff. So yes, I'd say I know a fair amount, but I'd hesitate to say a lot. There's always someone who knows a lot more than you in this world. Now is towards one of our June tops, and it has quite an interesting tree called the silver cluster leaf. Now, if you ever get a chance and you can chew on one of the leaves, you'll feel a most strange sensation in your mouth, and it slightly almost dries it out. And this can also be caused by a plant down in the low veld around TRISHALA and them called a common corkwood, and it almost feels like it paralyzes partially your salivary glands, and you get that feeling of almost sand in your mouth, very dry. So it's quite an interesting tree. It has a lot of uses, but the one I've always enjoyed is the fact that the leaves have a very blue tinge, almost like a silvery tinge. And in the old days, some of your tribal peoples would have taken these leaves and put them on wet clay pots. Now, those pots would have then been baked while still wet and covered in these leaves. And what they land up with is this almost silvery blue gloss. And you start to realize how people had an understanding to use many different things far beyond the technology of their times. But as we carry on with our bumble, we're going to be sending you across to Trisha, Djuma.
Well, we had some squirrels that were having a cute time on the branches, doing much the same as the mongoose were, trying to collect all that energy from the sun before it goes off and into the day with lots and lots of energy to eat, because that's what we need, energy to eat. Now, earlier when I sent you, I think I sent you to Josh when we were at the dam, male and female chin spot batters came and landed close by. But they're so quick, those guys. Then it would fly away. Every time I said chin spot batters, it would fly away. But they're very quick. So hopefully we'll see another one, or we'll see more birds, because I'm really enjoying birding this morning. Something about it. Or kind of, natural. Sometimes when we go out and we say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to concentrate on birds, or I'm going to go to the den, and we kind of set ourselves up in that way. Or there's like pressure and disappointment, but when you just kind of ease into it and you don't expect anything, and all of a sudden it's a nice birding morning, it's really, really rewarding. So I'm going to keep on going in that vein and just see what else the bush has to offer.
On the 27th of April, WildEarth will be turning 14 years old, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you. And to celebrate, we will be finishing the beautiful book that we started last year that looks at the history so far. But we do need you to be part of it. Please submit your most memorable sighting, or what WildEarth means to you, or even just your name and a comment to be included inside the book. Head over to the website to add your name and reserve your copy. We are offering a 20% discount on all books bought before the end of March. And a big thank you to all of you who have contributed to the book so far.
Our lives are dictated by alarm clocks, traffic jams, constant multitasking, and countless distractions. The wilderness is where many of us feel the most human. On a bushwalk, we become part of the natural landscape. As you step off the vehicle, everything comes alive. As with any risky experience, walking amongst these animals inspires awe and appreciation. Now, it's your turn to go on a bushwalk. Join us from Pride Lands as we slow down our thoughts, put aside our distractions, and reconnect with a place that first taught us how to be human.
I love being a cam up for WildEarth. The animals coming right up close to you, especially like lions. Sometimes you get nervous, but you have to go with the flow. My favorite animal to film is the elephant because of how big it is. But when it's really up close to you, it's one animal that you would say, I really respect you.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda. Craig and I have been driving around through some of the less explored parts of the reserve, and we've come to this area of relatively open grassland looking for some white rhinos. We've instead found a couple of zebra and some wildebeest. See a mother and her foal over there, and then a big wildebeest bull lying here on the ground. What is he doing? Shaking his head a little bit there. Maybe the flies are getting to him. The flies have been very pesky this morning. Shame, shaking his head, trying to get them away from his face, from his ears, his eyes, his nostrils. And then swishing his tail. Shaking off. Have a look at his face, everybody. Now that he's... Oh, don't do that. Look towards us so we can see you, please. I don't know if you can see on his face and on his horns how they are red. There's a whole bunch of red dirt all over his face. And with this red clay soil that we're driving through here, this wildebeest has obviously put his face against the ground, maybe rubbed his forehead against the ground, or horned the ground with his horns. Looking at his size and how thick his horns are, he looks like a territorial male, a dominant bull. And that kind of behavior is the kind of behavior that's quite common for territorial wildebeest bulls. It's part of how they mark their territory. Shame, he's really getting irritated. Moving off, heading towards that zebra and her foal, who also look like they've been having a bit of a roll around in the red earth. Have a look at them. Look at how red their coats are. Shame, that foal is covered in mud. Looks like he's had a good roll in the red soil. And looking at the wildebeest. Not quite sure how to react. But interesting now that both of them are standing like that. And when we got here, I initially didn't see that little zebra foal because it was standing on the other side of its mother. Have a look now with them standing so beautifully like that. Look at how long that zebra foal's legs are in relation to its body. Its belly is basically the same height off of the ground as its mother's. And so consequently, when it stands on the other side of its mum, it would be very easy to miss it, to not notice it. And there's a theory that suggests that that is a defensive mechanism that the zebra and many other antelope, or many antelope species like wildebeest, impala, that they'll use in terms of keeping their little ones safe in the herd. Because of course if a predator comes in and it's scanning a herd of zebra, scanning a herd of wildebeest looking for an easier target, of course a youngster will typically be the one that gets singled out. But it'll be much harder for that predator to notice the youngster if it's well, of course, with those very long legs and its belly being the same height as its mother's. It won't stick out. It won't be visible in between the legs of the rest of the herd. Also, of course, those long legs give them a bit of an advantage in terms of their ability to run, keep up with the rest of the herd. There you go, look at that wildebeest now going over to that bush over there, to the left of the zebra. And again, wiping his face against the twigs there. And it's quite tough to see. I'm using my binoculars. I can just see, it looks like he's almost rubbing his forehead or his nose against those twigs. And I don't know if any of you have seen before, noticed before on a wildebeest. In front of their eyes, they've got these big bulbs or these big round glands in front of their eyes. And they produce a bit of a secretion that they'll use to mark their territory. So a bit more territorial behavior going on here. Obviously letting other wildebeest know that this patch is taken. There's a much smaller wildebeest bull now approaching from the right, moving into shot. Looks like a bit of a younger bull. And he'll be tolerated in this older bull's territory as long as he doesn't try to scent mark and as long as he doesn't try to mate with any of the females that come into his territory when breeding season starts. If he does try that, it will elicit some trouble. But it looks like the little foal, I've just realized now, the foal has for the first time shown us the left side of its body. And it's nowhere near as muddy on this side as it is on the other side. So it must have been just lying down as opposed to rolling. Lying down on its right-hand side, maybe getting a bit of a rest last night. Big Boss, you're asking why the zebra and wildebeest's bodies keep twitching, keep shuddering like that. Big Boss, from what I've read and from what I understand, it's to keep the flies off of them. I mean, see how their tails are constantly swishing. There's flies buzzing all around their rear ends. And even us sitting here, there's flies that are landing on us and you're having to swat them away the whole time. So for a wildebeest, even with that long tail, or a zebra with that long tail, that's pretty good at keeping flies away from their rear end. It's not going to do much in terms of keeping flies away from their shoulder, from their back, or from their belly, and that little twitch helps with that. Looking through my binoculars, it seems like there's quite a few more zebra to the left of that foal away in the thicket there. They've obviously found a patch of good grazing. I was going to say, quite unusual for just a mother and her foal to be out here by themselves. But yeah, that's obviously not the case. There are more zebra through the bush there. Look at that foal trying to suckle. I was going to say, looking at the foal's size, and have a look, everybody, look at its rear end. Or its back rather, close to its rear end. See, there's that bit of light coloured fluff there. But looking at its neck and its face, its fur looks the same as its mother's. So that tells us it's not a terribly young foal. It's already starting to lose that soft baby fluff that little zebras are born with. The wildebeest standing in the front there looking at us. Ooh, Wendy, you're asking quite an interesting question. You're asking if animals... Look at the foal, it's lying on its side. It just flopped to the ground. And again, it's lying on its muddy side. It obviously has decided that it doesn't want to get its left-hand side muddy. It just wants to get... It's already dirty on its right, so it's going to get more dirty on its right. Sorry, you're asking, Wendy, if animals will use certain plants as an insect repellent. Wendy, I'm trying to think. I haven't seen, well, off the top of my head, I can't remember having seen or read anything about that. They'll tend to use other things like mud. Mud is normally a pretty good insect repellent. You see buffalo rolling around in mud, or, well, insect repellent, but also tick repellent or tick. Mud can then be used as an exfoliating agent to get rid of ticks. But in terms of plants, yeah, off the top of my head, I can't think of any. Because, of course, there are many plants that do, once crushed up or rubbed together, that can be used to keep insects at bay. Many insect repellents that you can buy in the grocery store or at the pharmacy that are based or that use, for example, like eucalyptus oil. I remember when I lived in the south of the United States, down in Louisiana, and we used to go out into the swamps to do research or to go fishing. And in summertime, my goodness, the insects were pretty hectic. Mosquitoes and different kinds of biting flies and these tiny little, I forget what they were called, but these tiny little flies that would kind of swarm all over your arms and legs and bite you, and you wouldn't even realize they were biting you until the next day you were covered in these little itchy bumps. And one of the most effective insect repellents was this eucalyptus oil-based spray that was obviously much more friendly for the environment than some of the more potent or more regularly found insect repellents. And it did the job pretty well. It kept all those biting insects at bay, kept us sane. It's having a million mosquitoes flying around your ears, biting you all over your ankles. Yeah, can drive you nuts. I can't get over that zebra foal. It's just decided it's had enough. It's exhausted. It wants to lie in the mud, and it keeps looking up at its mom to make sure that she's not getting too far away. Look at the wildebeest also. He's turned his head back, closed his eyes, fast asleep. What's that little foal doing? It's just seen another zebra that's just approached from the left. Are you going to investigate it? Bit of nuzzling there between the two. Ooh, have a look at this adult zebra that's just arrived, everybody. Look just behind its shoulder. I don't know if you guys can see, there's a little spot where the stripes are warped. It's quite tough to see, just behind the shoulder. The stripes don't quite merge properly, or they don't quite merge naturally. It's almost like it's got a scar, an old scar there that's healed up. If it is a scar, it's very old. But maybe where often we see this kind of thing, or that kind of pattern on a zebra that has been, or that has survived an attack by lions. Often if lions try to jump onto a zebra, of course they protract their claws and they latch onto the zebra, and the zebra will then buck and try and throw them off. And those claws are so terribly sharp that they'll slice open that zebra's hide in the process. And we often see zebra with massive wounds either on their rumps, on their backs or their shoulders from where they've managed to escape from a lion attack. And I wonder if this is one of those individuals that has managed to escape. incredible to watch the healing power that animals have, or the ability to recover that animals have. With very severe wounds that would, in a human, necessitate stitches or going to hospital, definitely need antibiotics. But yet animals can just get through that without any of that. Okay, I think Craig and I are going to leave the zebra and wildebeest to continue with their rest, and we're going to continue seeing if we can try and find a white rhino. Let's go across to Trish at Djuma.
Good luck, Damon. That would be awesome to see a rhino. Here we have also something that's white. It's a white-backed vulture. Definitely not a white rhino. There's two of them here, and they're on Rebecca's Road. Now, it doesn't have to mean that there's a carcass around if white-backed vultures are around, or if vultures are around. It's a good indication, but a lot of the time before the ground has heated up sufficiently, you'll find them hanging around on dead trees like this. Maybe one or two. But there's 3 others on a nearby tree. Look at that. So there's 5 altogether. I don't think that there's a carcass around. I think that it's most likely that because this is in somewhat close proximity to where Darkmane had taken that impala lamb from the vultures yesterday, maybe they just managed to roost nearby and so got up onto this tree once the sun started to come out so that they could heat themselves up, and then also that they could wait for the ground to heat up so that they could have that rising air that they could use to help them create lift and get high up into the sky. Thermals, we call that rising air, or those rising air pockets. Being a heavy bird, about 5 kgs, 5.5 kgs, they definitely need help to create a good amount of lift. And a dead tree, even though it looks so ominous, a vulture sitting on a dead tree, and they almost always do, but it's because they're so large that they need space once they actually take off from the tree. And they have like a massive wingspan. It's about 2 meters, just over. So they need all that space in order to take off properly. And a dead tree works well. Unfortunately, it doesn't work well for their reputation. But I myself, I love vultures. They have some incredible abilities, unbelievable eyesight. Some of the strongest stomach acids we know of. Lisa, you'd like to know, other than carcasses, do vultures eat anything else? No, vultures are predators, so they're not going to eat anything else. They're only going to eat things that are dead, or rather, vultures are carnivores, so they're only going to eat dead animal. They won't actively hunt, although there have been few cases where that has happened. But white-backed vultures, not. They are the ultimate scavenger, really. Their stomach acids are between 1 and 2, a pH of 1 and 2. That is very, very, very acidic. And they do a lot of cleaning up in the environment because a lot of the diseases, things like anthrax, those can't survive in the stomachs of vultures, but it can persist in the stomachs of other animals. So if a vulture comes down to a carcass that's been, in which anthrax is thriving, can actually eat that carcass and then prevent the spread of the anthrax bacterium to any others. In fact, strangely enough, I think today, I'm not sure in what year, actually can't remember what year it was in, but one of the scientists that were heavily involved in anthrax research, or start of anthrax research, was on this day in, I don't know how long ago. Louis Pasteur, 1877, he started his work on anthrax. Strange that I read that today and we happened to talk about anthrax. Lucy had a question about how many vultures do we actually have? Quite a few, actually. So the ones that we would have seen together, the white-backed vulture. We've seen a white-headed vulture here on Djuma as well. So that's 2. There's the Ruppel's vulture. There's also lappet-faced vulture that we've seen. Hooded vulture that we've seen. Cape vulture that we don't see. There might have been one time that we were seen on drive. Looks very similar to the white-backed vulture, but the color of the eye is different. And then there's the bearded vulture, the Egyptian vulture, and the palm nut vulture. So that's 9 vultures. That's a good amount. And you could potentially see all of those vultures because they have such vast areas that they will fly through. But the ones that we are sure that we see, often lappet-faced, hooded, and the white-backed vulture. Anyway, I'm going to keep on moving, and I'll send you over to Steve.
Welcome to Chitwa, everybody. We were at the dam for a moment, but it just got too hot sitting there, so we've now found ourselves a comfortable bit of shade. And we were watching 2 impala rams that were about to have a go at each other, and they've now both got pretty camera shy. We're out in the open area, just south of Chitwa watering hole. There we go, they're checking each other out again. Nothing too serious in it at the moment. Touching gloves. Working out a little bit of low-angled game. The horns of impalas are designed to lock against each other so that they can put full body weight behind without the horn slipping. Right now they're trying to test the locking potential of that horn, sort of like a pre-warm-up before taking the gloves off. We already saw competition becoming quite heightened at Pridelands, and we haven't really seen much here yet. It's becoming time for the males to start fighting and competing for space. Douglas, they can, and they do sometimes, but essentially an individual whose horn gets broken is showing a weakness of some sort, possibly even a deformity of some sort, and it means he's not going to be able to compete, which basically means he's out of the fight. If you aren't able to compete with the big, strong males, you aren't going to be able to mate, and essentially that weakness or the genetic deformity, whatever it might be, is then lost. One of the issues we have in small reserves is inbreeding, and in individuals who aren't 100% genetically fit being able to breed again, and then that genetic trait gets passed on. Whereas out here, deformity, illness, weakness, sickness filters out individuals from the population, and the strong survive. There we go, they're getting a little bit rougher. Strong survive, and the strong genetic makeup moves forward. Survival of the fittest. These look like two evenly matched rams, but I wouldn't say necessarily at the peak of their reproductive state. They're starting to feel it in the air though, but a number of the bigger males are already sort of standing off in areas that they've sort of tried to claim. But as soon as the females start coming to estrus, that competitive edge is going to grow and increase. It pays to hang out in the herd a bit longer. Many eyes and ears to look out for danger while you test your skills against willing combatants. You never become the top fighter by just jumping into the ring. You have to practice. And soft practice is often very important to get those necessary sort of skills down. And many people have given assumptions to the fetlock glands there on the back of the impala legs. They call them a gland, which means that when the impala does their stotting or their high rocking horse gait run, apparently it gives off some sort of pheromone or chemical that has been said to attract or help the impalas to follow each other without sight. Whether that's 100% true or not, I can't tell you, but it's definitely some form of gland. And it makes sense, like a beanbag or a sock with flour in it, to let the chemical or the flour pop out. You bob it up and down, and by that foot pumping as they run has the potential to let off a chemical or a pheromone that will allow impalas to move together and to stay together for safety. What other purpose there could be, I have no idea. Some people say the impalas have not evolved for 6 million years. So it's a very long time to have maintained the same sort of reproductive and social standings in everything they do. So the gland might also be from a time before. You often see when impalas scatter from wild dogs that they do all stick together. But a lot of that, I'm sure, is all visual. But it might assist in mummies finding youngsters, but it's uncertain. Okay, well, we're going to enjoy another moment in the shade while we watch these two spar. And we're going to send you back over to andBeyond Phinda.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda. Craig and I are still on our search for some white rhinos, but no luck just yet. We have been driving through these open grasslands, and we found this massive flock of barn swallows that are perched up on this little dead tree. And just have a listen to them. I'm going to keep quiet for a second, see if you can hear them twittering and chirring. It's a very faint sound. I don't know if you guys can hear it. That like very complex chirring and whistling and chirping as they busily fly around, never seeming to sit still. And there's always a new one that's flying in, trying to find a spot to perch. All of them wanting to perch together. And this kind of clustering, I'm sure many of you have seen it before with swallows or migratory birds. When it comes to the time of year for them to migrate either back to their overwintering grounds or their summer grounds, they often show this almost like restlessness where they start to line up on telephone wires or perch on big trees. And that's possibly part of the reason why these swallows are doing this. These barn swallows, of course, being migrants that have come from Europe and Asia. And they will soon be departing, leaving us to head back up there for the boreal summer, the northern hemisphere summer. And looking through my binoculars, it seems like there's not only a bunch of swallows on that tree, but just to the right, there's another fallen tree that also has a few barn swallows perched up on there. But in amongst them, there's also a couple of lesser striped swallows. And just with their position, where they are now, you go now that Craig has zoomed out a bit. See how it's not terribly open, but it's tough to see. We're in a bit of a clearing with some thickets on the other side of the valley there. But these open grasslands, especially after the rain, there's all kinds of little flying insects that are moving around after the rain. Of course, an abundance of flies we spoke about earlier that have been pestering both Craig and I, as well as the zebra and the wildebeest. So lots of food, and that's why these swallows are flying around here and are so active in this area, hunting low over the grass, catching all the little insects to eat, and getting prepared for their migration back north. And again, looking through my binoculars, looking into that flock, looks like there's lots of adults, but also lots of sub-adults that still haven't got their full adult plumage just yet. So a couple of younger barn swallows that this may be their first migration, the first time that they visited southern Africa. And every now and then there's this disturbance where they all take to the air and then start to fly around. Quite mesmerizing to watch. I'm trying to see if there's any other species of bird here. I did see a martin of some sort flying over earlier. I couldn't quite see which martin it was. Bernie Lulu, you're saying it's a lot of birds. Bernie Lulu, I haven't tried to count them just yet, but I think it'll be quite tough because they don't seem to want to sit still. Every time they do sit still and you start counting, one takes off or another one lands. But this is something we're going to see more and more of, and well, something we have been seeing more and more of in the last few weeks. Birds like these barn swallows starting to gather like this, European bee-eaters also in their flocks, also gathering and preparing to head back north. The European rollers, the redback shrikes. The common buzzards already have been conspicuous by their absence here at andBeyond Phinda. They seem to have already started to move out and begin their migration back north. All of those birds being birds that have come from Europe and Asia and that are going to head back up there to breed. Even the intra-African migrants, the migratory species that normally come from, instead of coming all the way from Europe, coming from further north in Africa, things like woodland kingfishers and broad-billed rollers, yellow-billed kites, Wahlberg's eagles. I don't know if I said already, violet-back starlings. They've also already started to disappear. Already deciding to head back north. There's so much activity around this dead tree here. And these swallows will have, of course, been feeding voraciously over the last few months since they've been down here, trying to build up their fat reserves to ready themselves for that long journey back up to the north. Of course, all the wading birds as well, the sandpiper, well, a variety of different sandpipers, common sandpipers, curlew sandpipers, wood sandpipers. They've already started to head out as well. That's one of my favorite things about summer down here in the bush, is the abundance of migratory birds. Lisa, you're asking if flocking together gives them protection? Lisa, it most definitely does. I mean, looking at these swallows, they're not very big birds. They're quite small, and would definitely make a tasty meal for a bird of prey like a falcon or a goshawk or a sparrowhawk. I mean, with them being such agile and speedy flyers, their speed and their agility will already be a pretty good form of defense. But being in a flock also definitely improves their chance of survival as well. Say, for example, if a goshawk were to fly into this flock right now and try to catch one to eat, the fact that there's so many there just limits the chance of, you being the individual to get taken out. And of course, also more eyes scanning for that danger. So a better chance of being alerted to the presence of danger before it gets too close, so that you can react in time and try to get away. Most definitely an advantage traveling together like this. Sure. And it's such a lovely morning. It's not too hot. It's nice and cool after the rain. I can feel, though, the humidity starting to increase. And I think by the time it gets to midday, it's going to maybe not be too hot, but probably be pretty humid. I don't know if you can see out in the distance there beyond the barn swallows. There's some massive clouds that are rolling in. There is a forecast, well, it is forecast to rain again a bit later today, but the weather forecast here can be particularly unreliable just because of our position, our geographic location, with the Indian Ocean so close to us and the moisture-laden air coming off of the warmer Gullis current, and then the mountains behind us also creating their own weather. Very often we kind of sit in between the two and don't get much rain. So it'll be interesting to see if those clouds do bring with them any more rainfall. I think Craig and I are going to leave these swallows. We're going to carry on and see if we can't find some fresh evidence of some white rhinos. Hi, my name is Damon and I'm a guide here at andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. Join me and our resident ecologist, Craig Sholto-Douglas, at the fireside on the 21st of March for a discussion on 2 of our conservation projects. In early 2016, andBeyond was faced with the fact that without some serious intervention, our rhino population could be in some serious trouble. And so a decision was made to start a rhino dehorning program. Sadly, the fastest mammal on land, the cheetah, is also racing towards extinction. The andBeyond Phinda conservation team has been working on a project that aims to increase the genetic integrity of cheetah in protected areas around the country. Sign up to be a WildEarth explorer and join us for a lively debate where we'll answer as many of your questions as possible.
I'm absolutely delighted to have won the February prize draw for 3 nights for 6 people at the Djuma Private Game Reserve. I absolutely love everything WildEarth has to offer. I find the guides extremely knowledgeable and will go above and beyond to ensure a great safari experience. I will be taking my husband and family from the UK to experience this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. One of the main reasons I joined the WildEarth Explorer program was for the fireside chats and also to win an incredible prize, which I'm so fortunate to win and incredibly happy. I would like to thank WildEarth for this amazing prize and cannot wait to meet the team.
My name is Lauren and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feeds.
I am still looking for some birds. We're out here in quarantine because I wanted to find a bee eater. And very often I see them on quarantine. I thought that would be a nice one for our list today. I think our list is very colorful, the birds that we've seen today. So I wanted to add even more color by finding some bee eaters. So we're going to stop off somewhere here and just watch for a little while. But I must say it looks very quiet. The birds have been very relaxing today. At least I found it. I hope you found that too. It feels like a very peaceful Sunday morning. Human Rights Day morning, actually, in South Africa. Happy Human Rights Day. Let's tuck in here. I could hear a black-headed oriole, but I cannot see it. Let's look off here. Birdie, birdie, birdies. There's the black-headed oriole. Oh, but to actually see it. Let's just take a round, follow the road round there. Pete, you'd like to know where do bee eaters nest? Well, actually, one of my favorite bits about bee eaters are their nests. Let's just tuck in here quickly. Let's just pan off this way. Have a quick look here, as it's in that direction. So the carmine bee eater, which is actually my favorite bee eater, but it's one that we don't get to see very often. That one nests in sort of cavities not in an able. They nest in cavities in a wall of like a sandbank. That one I really, really, really love. I can hear it. I can't see it. And sorry, most of the bee eaters will create some sort of hollow, whether it's in like a disused burrow or a termite mound or that kind of drop in a bank, in a sandbank or at a drainage. That's where they'll nest. They make these little tunnels. It's amazing to see them, especially those that are gregarious, like the carmine bee eater. You'll get like a whole flock holding on to the edge, to the side of the wall. We're gonna find it, guys. We're gonna find it. It's calling beautifully for us. Definitely, where we were parked was probably the best place to see it in terms of sound, because it sounds like it's coming just exactly from the area, but I can't see. We're getting warmer. You know, the problem with these things is we get too warm, too close, and it's gonna fly. It is so close. Oh, we see it, we see it, we see it. There it is. Michael, you'd like to know if I'm also an avid birder with a list? I mean, I wouldn't call myself particularly a birder. It's not something that I focus on especially, because I love all things. That's my problem. It's actually been my problem for even the extent of my scientific careers. I could never specialize. It was just never, I just liked too many things. Except I did end up specializing, but the thing is, it was not because I particularly liked one thing over another. Listen to it. Finally gotten it on camera. But Michael, I do have a bird list. I haven't updated it in probably a year now. I try to keep the one on the app, keep it ticked off. But we see so many birds. I just don't end up keeping good lists, or my admin is not great when it comes to those things. But I do love birding. I think I just like to actually see the birds experience. It doesn't matter too much to me about the list. But it is super cool if you do have a list and you're able to You have half my head, Johan. We're both looking up at the birds, and I just look down and I see my head is getting smaller. We've both gotten into the birds quite a lot today. Now it's here somewhere again. We're going to see what else we can hear and what else we can find, because that would be really cool. I'm really enjoying the birding with you today. Even if you do keep a list or you don't keep a list, either way, it's enjoyable. But let me send you over to Damon at a watering hole now. Maybe you can add something onto your list there.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda. We haven't found a rhino, but we found a couple of hippos. I suppose another large mega herbivore, if you will, that are taking it easy in a waterhole that up until a couple of days ago didn't have nearly enough water in it to support even one hippo. And thanks to the fantastic rains that we've had recently again, I'm actually speechless, everybody, just looking at how full this waterhole is. We'll let Craig zoom out. But this entire little grassland, or not so little, this entire grassland in front of us was dry. Dry. And literally 2 days of rainfall has completely submerged it. And it's amazing how almost immediately these hippos have moved in and taken up residence in the waterhole, as well as a whole variety of water birds. I can see there's a little island of floating vegetation with a single African jacana perched on the top of that vegetation. I'm scanning the grass very carefully with my binoculars, because often when an area of grassland like this gets suddenly flooded, it can be a magnet for all kinds of unusual little water birds. Different kinds of crakes. African crake in this area is something that we'd keep a lookout for. But also things like lesser moorhens. We've been seeing up on the grasslands of the north of the reserve that have been flooded also by the rains. Maybe even something like a dwarf bittern, a small heron-like bird. For the time being though, just the jacana. I'm going to keep scanning with my binoculars to see if we can't maybe just spot some movement in the long grass at the edge of the water. All of those aforementioned birds tend to be skulking species that tend to hide and make themselves inconspicuous, moving around slowly and carefully in the tangles of grass and aquatic vegetation. So I'm going to keep a careful lookout. But it's unbelievable, everyone, just to see this. I was literally saying to Craig now that I think it's been 2.5 years since I've seen the water like this. Kay Williamson, you're asking if crocodiles would make their way here. Kay Williamson, absolutely. Although for a big crocodile that needs to feed on bigger prey, things like impalas or warthogs or Ngala, this waterhole might not be the best place for that. Just because imagine, with such a big body of water, the odds of setting an ambush and then setting it in the right place are going to be pretty low. Whereas if the water is... Sorry, the hippo just came up there, gave me a fright. Oh, it didn't give me a fright, just I hadn't seen it up until now. Sorry, Kay Williamson. So for a crocodile to catch a bigger animal, it generally wants to set an ambush in a place where there's a really good chance of a herbivore coming to drink at a specific spot, and then that crocodile can then set its ambush there. Here, animals could come from any direction, and there's so many puddles of rainwater lying around that an impala or a warthog could just go and drink there rather than risk it coming down to a big body of water like this. So often we see crocodiles will actually move out of bigger bodies of water, go to smaller bodies of water where it's easier for them to catch their prey. I suppose even for them trying to catch things like catfish. You know, here in this massive body of water now, those catfish could be anywhere and they'll move around freely, whereas in a more confined or in a smaller body of water, that croc will be able to hunt those catfish a bit easier. Well, it'll be easier for the croc to then hunt those catfish. But Kay Williamson, I did see when this waterhole was still a bit well, before we had the big rains, there was, like I said, a little pool, and I was astonished to see that in the pool, as small as it was, there was an enormous crocodile, maybe about 3 meters or 9 feet long, sitting in the water, and it had actually caught a catfish. The waterhole drying up and the water levels receding, the catfish being unable to move away and escape. ideal kind of spot for a crocodile to hunt. It was eating all the catfish that were trapped in that little pool of water. But I don't know if that crocodile is still in here. I mean, it's such a big body of water now, and there's so much flooded vegetation that it could be right here under our noses, and we'd never notice. I'll keep a listen out though for that sound. Often if a crocodile catches a fish or catches something, there's a loud splash. You might hear the jaws snapping shut. Or if it's got a bit of a bigger prey item, you might hear it rolling. If there's other crocodiles feeding on it, they'll be splashing as each croc grabs a piece of the carcass and then does that death roll, that rapid twisting of its body, designed to tear chunks of meat off. Might also hear them if they've caught something kind of medium-sized, like a really big catfish or a small mammal, and they'll then hold it in their mouth, lift their head above the water. If there's no other crocodile to help them break up the carcass, and they'll lift their head out the water and they'll shake their head violently, almost like snapping their neck, and that'll help to break pieces of meat off of the carcass, or break the carcass up so that they can swallow chunks of it. Kelly, you're asking if hippos will eat any of the aquatic plants. Kelly, yes they will. I've seen hippos feeding on grasses and stuff that grow in the water, and different kinds of aquatic vegetation. They'll obviously choose whatever is most nutritious. A lot of this grass that's growing here is very coarse, and not the best grazing quality, not the best or the most nutritious grass. A lot of it's pretty high in fiber, low in protein. And so the hippos will be looking for better quality grazing, especially now at this time of year, and with the conditions we've got. We've had so much rain, there's so much good quality forage available to them that they can afford to be more selective with their feeding. Obviously in drier months when they can't be so choosy, then they'll eat whatever they can get, I suppose. And that's often when we see hippos starting to lose condition. They are often an animal that tends to lose condition pretty quickly or in times of drought when there's not much food available. Oh, there's a shaft-tailed willow bird. Craig, see that black bird flying across the water there? It's a bird I don't know if we've filmed before. Oh, but it's flying away very quickly. Sorry, fan-tailed willow bird, not shaft-tailed willow bird. Fan-tailed willow bird. Just see him there in amongst the long grass. I'm going to quickly open my bird book. It's so far away that I don't know if you'll be able to see him very well. I'll show it to you in the bird book so you can get a better idea of what it looks like. Just bear with me for a second. So that very black color, and probably be a bit tough to see from here, but he's got a lovely red shoulder, does the male. So there we go, the fan-tailed willow bird. And that was what we saw there, that flying male fan-tailed willow bird there, with his black body and his red shoulders, that very light, greyish, almost whitish, or very pale kind of bill. And by comparison, the female, much more drab, much duller. Listen to the jacana calling. Jacana calling out there from the middle of the water. But yeah, I'd love to know from you if that was the first time you've... Oh. Jacana calling again. But a lovely scene and a wonderful surprise for me. This is the first time that I've seen this waterhole like this in literally, like I said, more than 2 years. So wonderful to see it so full. Craig and I are going to continue from here. Still looking for any fresh signs of some white rhinos. Let's go back to Trish in the meantime.
out here on quarantine and looking out at all the lesser seen stuff, you know, the beautiful birds, lovely trees. And then we came across this termite mound and we saw something scurry in and we waited for a little bit. Finally, it has emerged. Just in time. So it's definitely a plated lizard, but usually the ones we see are rough-plated lizard or rough-scaled plated lizard. And this one, when we saw it, at least when it was running in, when we first drove past, it kind of looked like a black-lined plated lizard, which is a smaller relative of the other plated lizards. And they're often found on termite mounds, like the smaller termite mounds. So maybe it'll get comfortable and come out and we'll be able to see it, because if it is a black-lined plated lizard, it has a very distinct, or two very distinct lines along its back that's kind of like a bright yellow and then black. I love finding little creatures in holes like this. It just takes a bit of patience, just wait and watch, and eventually they will emerge, just like the dwarf mongoose. Sometimes we just have to wait. Come on, buddy. You can do it. So like all of the plated lizards, there's a carnivore, but being smaller than the rough-plated, they take smaller insects, so they prefer things like grasshoppers, beetles, even snails. A small invertebrate is a good invertebrate. The cream belly is a good indication that we have our right ID. Plain cream belly like that. Jerome, you'd like to know if there'd be quite a few of them in the termite mound? No. It's usually just one, and they'll only associate with each other when they need to mate. Termite mounds are great because, being a reptile, your body temperature is very closely linked to the ambient temperature, and if you have a good ambient temperature and one that can be controlled, doesn't fluctuate too much, then that's best for you and all of your vitals. And we know that termite mounds keep quite a consistent 35 to 37 degrees Celsius. Apart from that, they don't have to come out to get an extra sudding. It's easier to do that. Plus you can collect sunshine both in the morning and in the evening, because a termite mound is a mound, so you can relax and bask on the eastern side in the morning or on the western side in the evening. So it's a really good option for reptiles. I just wanted it to come out because as soon as when we drove past, its whole body was out. You could see the two lines really distinctly. And that's really what I want to show you. Because I don't think I've ever put one of these on camera before. Rough-plated lizard, giant-plated lizard, yes. But not the black-lined. I've seen them, but I don't think I've put it on camera. Darcy-Ann, you'd like to know if the plated lizard can drop its tail and regenerate it? No. At least I don't think it can. As far as I've read, as far as I've read about them, I haven't seen that anywhere. And I have looked, if you remember, I found one on the road, a giant plated lizard though, not one of these ones. And so I dissected it and then I showed you various parts of it. And I had a cross-section of the tail, and there were fat deposits all along the tail. So they definitely store fat in the tail, but I have not read that they can drop their tails. In fact, I'm quite sure that they can't. Oh, actually, I was just looking in a book because I was so unsure about whether they could do it, and then I had never seen one. But I've just read right at the bottom here in one of my books. I'm not sure which lizard it's referring to. Giant plated lizards specifically. Giant plated lizards also practice autotomy, and they're able to shed and regenerate their tails. There we go. So not specific to this lizard, but a giant plated lizard can do that. About this one, not sure exactly. And that's pretty cool. I didn't know they could do that.
On the 27th of April, WildEarth will be turning 14 years old, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you. And to celebrate, we will be finishing the beautiful book that we started last year that looks at the history so far. But we do need you to be part of it. Please submit your most memorable sighting, or what WildEarth means to you, or even just your name and a comment to be included inside the book. Head over to the website to add your name and reserve your copy. We are offering a 20% discount on all books bought before the end of March. And a big thank you to all of you who have contributed to the book so far.
It's the month of March, and WildEarth is offering you the chance to win a brand new prize. Sign up to be a WildEarth Explorer, and you could win a 5-day eco-training ranger experience for 2. Eco-training is the pioneer and leader in safari guide and wildlife training in Africa. The lucky winners can look forward to approaching dangerous game on foot, tracking and 4x4 driving, learning about animal behavior, and even spending one night sleeping out under a blanket of stars. In addition, you will also get the exclusive opportunity to join the WildEarth team on the broadcasting vehicle. Sign up to be an explorer now, and it could be you that wins this life-changing experience. Terms and conditions apply.
My name is Steve, and one of my favorite things at WildEarth is getting questions from you. The type of questions that I really like are those ones that really help us to unpack and understand and really integrate the ecological knowledge and fully appreciate the importance that animals such as these Cape buffalo bring to the ecosystem. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, you're going to have to register on the website. But once registered, just head on over to the live safari page and enter your question under the live feed.
Still no movement here with our black-lined plated lizard. So this black-lined or plated lizards are in the genus Gyrosaurus. And if the giant plated lizard, which is the Gyrosaurus validus, can shed its tail, it is not unlikely that this one can too. I have to just research a little bit more for you there, because in other books and references it doesn't show that it sheds its tail. So before we determine whether it can or can't, maybe I just read a little bit more in other sources, because one book says it can, the other book doesn't mention it at all. But it's, you know, I don't know if you know, most of, especially viewers who have been watching for a long time, know that I don't like geckos, especially house geckos, you know, the see-through ones. It comes from growing up in Durban, where they're all over the place, and they're in your room, and they fall on your head while you sleep, and all that kind of thing. Or you hear them go in the night, and they're near your ear. Anyway, there was one in my room recently, and I tried to catch it, and it dropped its tail. When I say tried to catch it, I use that term loosely. It was a big towel that I used to try and, throw over it and grab it, and so I tried to throw it outside, and it dropped its tail. So me being me, after I accomplished throwing it outside, I had a look at the tail, which was still wiggling uncontrollably. Then it stopped, and then I put some water in it just to wash it off, in case there was some stuff in it. I didn't want to touch it immediately. And then it started to wiggle again, which I found interesting. And then I had a good look on the inside, and it was, you could still see there was area where there was blood in the central bit of the tail. You could see there was no bone whatsoever in that area. And then I wanted to keep it and see if it would regenerate. Of course it wouldn't, because it's the other side that regenerates, not the tail that's fallen off. But it was quite a interesting thing to watch. I'm always interested when I can learn something firsthand. And if I ever see one of the plated lizards with a stumpy tail, or a tail that looks like it's recently fallen off, or that's regenerating, anything like that, I will definitely make a note, because I always prefer to find out firsthand. Awesome stuff. Well, this evening, or this afternoon, when it's for sunset safari, I'll tell you what else I've learned about whether it can engage in autotomy and whether it can regenerate. So the first line of defense is always to go into a crevice and to puff themselves up so that nothing can actually pull it out. And I've always known that as the first line of defense. So we'll figure it out. And thank you, Dacian, for asking and making me think about it. But we'll leave that discussion for this afternoon. Well, thank you, little buddy, and thank you all for all your questions and your comments. It's been a wonderful morning out in the African bush, peaceful and beautiful. We'll see you this afternoon. Bye-bye.